Not gonna lie, that was a tough one to swallow Sunday. I was talking about this on our show today. Like, you had the last two home games, the Rams and the Colts, very similar kind of teams, 500-ish teams. I left the Rams game like really kind of excited. Like, they played. Drake Maye played really, really well in the first half of that game, especially, but really the whole game. They kind of made some plays. They slugged it out a little bit. They were a little bit lucky to be in the game, but in the end of the game, they had a chance. They fell short. All right. This game, I felt like the Patriots dominated. I felt like offensively they moved up and down the field the whole game, couldn't finish drives.
No, feel nothing, they did.
Couldn't stop making penalties, committing penalties. And then, at the end of the game, you get a guy who is, I think he's immensely talented, but obviously extremely raw in Anthony Richardson. And you can't get off the field on 3/4 downs. I just had such a different impression after this game than the Rams game. It was very, very frustrating. When this is one I was thinking, this is how much he's in my head, this jerk. I was thinking these are those culture games that Felger talks about. Like, that's like you lost that game because you don't know how to win.
So that's
why you lost.
And so I know it's multifactorial, as they would say, but what's happened? How come they can't close out these games?
This one was just poor execution all around. And I think if you really want to go, like, the thing that really stood out to me was the possession after the Gonzalez interception. I know you guys have talked about this earlier in the week, but I thought that was, any semblance of a team there says, we get 20 yards, we kick a field goal, this game's over. Run, throw on third down, and third and long. And I know they don't expect to get no yards on the two runs, but that's what happened. I thought it was an opportunity I think that they felt like that was a possession. There was 8 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal is to take clock. And I don't think that should be the goal. The goal there should have been, we need to score here and end this game. Because NFL teams that have a 2-score lead and, say the last 5 minutes of the game, you nerds can tell me whatever the numbers are, but I'll bet it's over 90% win probability with a 2-score lead. That should have been the goal, not milking clock.
It was really an amazing sequence. It was. Like, as he said, 8 minutes to go. If they took two and a half minutes off the clock and gave the ball right back. So they didn't even make it hard on the Colts. Like, even if they had kept the ball for 4 minutes, and they probably would have gotten a field goal had they done that. That wouldn't have been enough, like, in terms to kill the clock. They did nothing with that possession. Zero.
Do you worry that these guys just don't get it? These guys being the coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to be more patient with the coaches because of how new everything is. I'm worried that they don't have the right guys. Like, the players that are making mistakes and whatnot, they sort of hitch their wagons to a lot of these guys. So I know there's going to be a lot of new players coming in, but there's also going to be a lot of these same guys that are going to be around because they re-signed a lot of players. And
So you're talking about the guys they brought back?
Yeah. Yeah,
anyone specific you're worried about, Paul? And I'm not trying to ask you to throw anyone under the bus.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I would just say like the entirety, because I was pretty consistent about this throughout the offseason. I wouldn't necessarily stand here and argue, and you guys know I can argue anything. I wouldn't argue specific individual player. Why did they re-sign him? I think you could make an argument for all of them, but I just didn't understand why they all got re-signed. If you thought that Owenu was that important at the offensive line, by all means. Hunter Henry, they had no tight end. I get it. Like, they had to have Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry and Mike Owenu on offense. I didn't really understand why all of them. Same with the defense with, it's Duggar, Peppers, Jelani Tavai, Devon Godchow. Like, they re-signed all of them. So there is going to be, I think, an element of that nucleus is going to be back next year. I wouldn't expect too many of those guys to get cut loose. So these guys haven't experienced a lot of winning. And you ask, off the top, Mike, what do you think the problem is? I just don't think they're used to winning. I think they're, when a play like that needs to be made, and give the Colts credit. I don't mean to make this all about the Patriots just, puked over themselves. The Colts made plays when they had to make them. But to me, it was eye-opening. I didn't think that Colts team is all that good. I didn't think that going in, and nothing that they did on the field told me any differently. But even they were able to make plays in crunch time and you can't. And it kind of was startling to me when that game was over.
So we've been kicking around a lot about where they go from here. And again, it goes back to the coaching staff. The roster stuff is obvious. I mean, they have to flesh out a lot of the roster and improve a lot of the roster. And we get all that. But in terms of the coaching staff, who stays, who goes, I think now everyone has been subject to one bit of reportorial speculation. I don't know if that's even a word.
Reportorial.
You know what I mean? Insider either speculation or flat out reporting that, well, the Pats have called around on offensive guys. Burt Breer. Pats have called around on defensive guys and looked into helping DeMarcus Covington, Doug Kyde early in the season. Elliott Wolf has been floated out there as well. Don't overlook him. Could he? Is he also not safe? And then I think Beadle might have been implying something yesterday when we talked about he wonders if the certain ownership elements are calling around just to see the landscape with coaching. And so it's all sort of on the table. How much of it is on the table? How much of it should be on the table?
Yeah, I don't know how much is on the table to the easiest answer, but I would say Gerard Mayo is not going anywhere. I mean, I think that they're pretty committed to at least seeing it through. The rest of it, I think, is going to be up for interpretation. I don't know what their options are going to be. You want to take them individually offensively? I kind of like the direction that they're going. I think that there's been more creativity shown over the last couple. I thought in this particular game, the little motion to not motion, but the
Marcus Jones,
the read option to Marcus Jones with the little shovel pass, nice little wrinkle. That was a nice play. That was like a play that you would think Andy Reid came up with.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think that's trending in the right direction. They're definitely moving the ball more effectively than they were earlier in the year. I don't know the points haven't necessarily come yet, but they're knocking on the door there. So I like. It's hard to watch Drake Maye every week and not at least give some of that credit to Alex Van Pelt. So I like the direction the offense is going defensively. I don't. I think that there have been too many games like this one where you're facing an offense that's kind of limited and you still couldn't stop it. And I know the yardage didn't indicate it. I think we only had about 255 yards of offense. But I thought Anthony Richardson looked pretty comfortable. I think you also had a couple of big penalties that don't count in total yards.
The PI.
Yeah, there was a couple of them.
Yeah.
So those don't show up in the total yards.
Big one.
Right.
And I also thought they had a couple of long balls that they dropped that aren't obviously showing up in the yardage. So the base defense, to me, I think that they've at times been in that a little bit too often. But beyond Christian Gonzalez in the secondary, they have not had any answers. And he's been terrific, but the rest of the group has been struggling.
You hear our I don't know what to call it, talk radio fodder to open up the show about would they be in better shape right now if they had just kept Bill Belichick?
Oh, no. No, they wouldn't be in better shape.
They wouldn't?
No, I'd be miserable, first of all.
Okay, no, obviously.
No,
obviously.
I'm obviously joking. I just don't think that – I think Bill's time had passed.
Me too. But what if, as we thought at the time, Bill would be willing to give up personnel power? They brought in a real GM, took away the draft and personnel power from Bill. You keep all that defensive coaching personnel in there with his kid and Gerard Mayo in their roles, which I know is problematic, but just work with me.
I'm working.
And then your offensive coordinator is Bill O'Brien or Josh McDaniels. You bring back him because he's available. And so now Bill's just your head coach. He's not the GM. All the defensive personnel is still in place. You've got O'Brien or McDaniels as your offensive coordinator. You're still drafting Drake Maye. Bill's not allowed to trade down and take a defensive tackle at 8.
There's a lot of qualifiers.
Yeah, sure is. Well, it's talk radio. It's what we do. Would they be in better shape in that situation?
I really don't think so. I mean, I think that you can make an argument that a couple of the games, the way they unfolded, apples to apples, maybe Bill wins this game. Maybe Bill wins the Miami game. But I want to go back offensively. So a lot of people told me, and I'm not an expert on the X's and O's, and I don't pretend to be. The all-22 Cowboys, I like to call them. A lot of people tell me about how quarterback-friendly this system is. And the Shanahan-McVay tree, some of the beauty is in the simplicity for the quarterback. That's not Josh McDaniels' offense, and I know it's not his offense. The Ron Earhart system that they've used effectively is not an easy system for quarterbacks. So I don't know what Drake Maye would look like. I do agree that he would play. If again, under your premise that they had to draft him, because I'm not sure Bill would have drafted him at 3 overall.
He doesn't have personnel power.
But he didn't have that power, so they have Drake Maye. I'm not sure he would have been as effective in that offense this quickly as he has been
even though
in the Van Pelt offense.
Though Mac Jones was.
Yeah, I think Mac Jones was a different kind of player. It was kind of if you want to say he could have done what Mac Jones did, sure. I think a lot of guys could have done that. Hand the ball off, play defense, wait for the other team to make a mistake, and find a way to stumble into a few wins because you played a bunch of backup quarterbacks. That was the formula in 21.
Talk about a list of qualifiers.
No.
The second half of the 21 season, people still do not talk about.
No, I do.
The offense fell off the map, and people just don't talk. They allowed him to throw the ball 3 times in a game. Like, people think that Mac Jones did something as a rookie that he just didn't.
No,
because they went 10-7 and went to the playoffs.
No, he was
along for the ride.
He was just okay, yeah. But
so I think Drake Maye could have done that.
Right.
But I think it wouldn't look like this. Like, this offense has been better, and I don't care what the numbers say.
So you think
I don't know about the 50 points they put up on the Jets or something.
Yeah.
In some meaningless game.
And Jacksonville.
Yeah, like the numbers may have been better.
Mm-hmm.
The play Drake Maye has played better in his starts than Mac Jones did in 21 by a lot.
My whole point is, I'm just going on to the premise that they might have to blow up the whole thing at the end of the season in terms of staff, okay, in terms of coaching staff, front office. And even if they keep Gerard Mayo, it's like, well, now you've blown up everything around him, but you're keeping Mayo, which doesn't mean it's on performance. It's on some sort of loyalty or premise that he deserves another chance, but not because he's the right guy, but just because of some intangible thing, which is almost worse because now you're sticking another year with the guy that might not be the guy, but you don't want to do it for whatever reason. And they haven't. They're sort of back to ground zero, which in that case you might have just kept Belichick. You would have won a few more games in the interim.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a complete blow up like you're talking about. I mean, I think there could be a change or two. I think Mayo and Wolf are going to be in place, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the coordinators, but I would be surprised if both of them left. And that to me is like blowing it up and starting over.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a tweak somewhere, but right now I would say I'm not expecting any of it. But a lot can change over.
They're
the last
all
month.
back in mass.
Yeah, I think there could be like additions and maybe some alterations, but I think it would be a step in the wrong direction to just completely change course right away.
The analogy that I use just quickly, and I hate to cross sports, but it just popped in my head, is in 2011, I thought it was time for Terry Francona, too. They made the right move by firing Terry Francona. The thing was a mess. He was a little bit of a mess. It was time. And then we got halfway through with the Bobby Valentine year, and I think you were right to say, okay, it was time for Francona, but if they were going to give us this, you might as well just kept him and been more patient and worked with him to work through his problems and the team's issues, because this is a joke. And
is this a Bobby Valentine joke?
It's not. So it's not quite the Bobby Valentine joke, but
I don't think anything magical is going to happen.
Sorry, Bobby. It ain't good. It ain't. It wasn't well
Sunday
thought
was
out.
frustrating. Like I said, I thought of like all of our conversations about a winning culture, and then Gerard talking about how it's hard to sort of establish that, and then you lose a game like that. That to me, it made it even harder to convince them.
If you like that clip, check out more videos from Felger and Mazz here. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. And for all the latest from the Sports Hub, download the app at 985thesportshub.com.